welcome to the first theme. I'm glad you made it here, and I hope that you're getting used to the pattern as we make it through in this course. Today we're going to be discussing great men and women, or looking at the history of American education and taking a critical look at this. And there's some challenging reading ahead of you. Jonathan Kozol says the first goal and primary function of the U.S. public schools is not to educate good people but good citizens. It is the function which we call in enemy nations state indoctrination. Education only serves one of two purposes. It's either about liberating people or it's about conforming them, or as Paulo Freire says, oppressing them. So liberation or conforming and oppressing. Kozol goes on to say whether the root cause lies in the whole economic system, in homes, in neighborhoods, in TV studios, or in boardrooms, of large corporations, the bias of school itself is clearly anti-ethical and anti-human. And we need to tease that apart here, hopefully that you can try to understand where he's coming from and why he may say that. To make his argument, Jonathan Kozol takes a look at history and the biases that are inherent in it. Even in the word history, his story, if you break it down, signifies that it's not a woman writing history, but it is his story. So there is a bias already there. And then as you look closely at history books and who writes them, they're written by the winners. And they're written by probably middle-class people. So there is a bias in history. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when people say there isn't a bias, but all history is written in a bias. What if American history were written by a Native American? Joe Spring, the one article you're going to read, is a Native American. What if it were written by a woman? Would it look differently? Or somebody from England, a Brit? It would certainly sound a whole lot different. So that there are some inherent biases, but let's not get hung up on that. Just understand that there is always a bias. And so let's take a look for a moment at the question of how have we trivialized great men and women of the past. What have we done to them? Think for a moment of George Washington. What do you remember about George Washington from your studies growing up in school? Do you remember a whole lot about him that is really significant? Or do you remember some trivial facts that he had wooden teeth and first president? Yeah, I think you get the point. Let's take Martin Luther King. What do you remember about him? I Have a Dream speech. A lot of people don't even know that he grew up here in Atlanta. That he was a, civil rights leader. But those are pretty trivial things that we remember about people. Helen Keller, what do you remember about her? Do you realize that she was a real activist? She was not a woman that you could walk over very easily. She says, we've tried peace education for 1,900 years. Now it's time for revolution. She's talked in front of prime ministers and world leaders and kings. You can actually go on YouTube and find some actual footage of her in some of her speeches. And she grew up not too far from us in Alabama. I hope you're getting the idea that we put these people up on pedestals and remember trivial facts about them, but we really don't understand who they are. And we could never become like them. For instance, King talks about going to the mountain. Jesus talks about going to Gethsemane, Thoreau to the pond, and Gandhi to the river. What do these represent? Do they represent something about our lives and our destiny? They're not coincidental that every one of these men who went to these places that they talk about in their lives that define them, they don't come back the same way. Every one of them knew that they were going to give up their lives for their cause. They were focused. It was clear of what their calling was. What if education today was more in line with helping our students find their calling, their mountain, their garden? I think that would be a powerful shift in the way we look at education, and it would transform lives. I know in my personal lives, if somebody would have recognized my gifts or helped me discover my mountain, man, that would have been wonderful. My own father, he didn't think I would amount to anything in life, and because he didn't see my potential. He had no idea of help, that his job was to help me discover my gifts and my mountain, and so that I would have a clearer idea of who I was and what my purpose on earth is. Anyway, I hope you get the idea, and as you go through this lesson that you will dig deep into it, and you need to also respond to, in the Dropbox, react to these readings. I don't want it doesn't need to be real long, but your reaction would be a paragraph or two would be great. Also, if you will write some things on the discussion board, maybe some of your thoughts in reaction to these readings. Okay? If there's any questions, give me an email or set up an appointment to talk with me, okay? Thank you, and I won't be talking from Florida here again for a while. Bye-bye.